Thank you. My name's Jeff Byrne. I'm the parish priest of St John's in CInderford. When the Labour Party came into government for the first time after a very long period of Tory government, one of their main planks was that they were going to have a just foreign policy. I've been very disappointed by their performance on this. Since they've come in, we've gone into at least 2 wars. People are still supporting the purchase of nuclear weapons and so on. I say this because it's not just against the Labour Party, but against many of the major parties would have supported the same policies as well. So I want to know what you're going to do about getting a just foreign policy, one which uses our resources to support the world rather than the way that we're behaving at the moment.
Right. Would Chris like to answer that one?
Certainly, yes. I, in 1997, just like everybody else, and whilst I was busily campaigning for the Liberal Democrats, of course, I welcomed the change that 1997 brought us, and this was one of those flagship policies, wasn't it, for the Labour Party, a just foreign policy. And what did we see very soon after the war in Iraq? An absolute, complete and utter scandal. The Liberal Democrats were at the forefront of a campaign to oppose the war in Iraq. It's only right that I make that comment. And we were at the forefront of the opposition to that war when it was quite unpopular to be against the war. And of course, we got a good amount of support as a result. And I think, frankly, we've been proved right. Invading countries because we don't like the way that they are run, and then, to add insult to injury, not have an exit strategy, is just wrong. In terms of the war in Afghanistan, again, we invaded too quickly, we didn't have a strategy for what we really wanted to see happen, and we didn't have a plan at the outset as to what we wanted to do to bring the troops home. But we are where we are. So in terms of the war in Afghanistan, from my personal point of view and our party's point of view, we are constructive critics, as it were, of that war, but looking for an exit strategy. I'm mindful of the 90 seconds, but I do want to make this point. I look back to probably the 80s, but certainly the 90s, and one thing that I would give the Tory government credit for is their solution to the problem in Ireland. And I think John Major and his colleagues take a very great deal of credit for what they did to get the ball rolling. And what did they do? They negotiated. They negotiated with the milder elements, it has to be said, of people that perhaps on any other day of the week might have been called extremists. Turned out to be, well...
Yep. Okay. Can we have James, please, on that?
That is a huge question. One of the reasons why I became active in politics was I have spent some time in Afghanistan, and our treatment of that country has been an absolute disgrace. I feel extremely sorry for our servicemen and women who are out there. The money that has been spent destroying that country and pulverising it even more is quite extraordinary, and any politician that has supported either that war or the war in Iraq should hang their head in shame. We see just foreign policy being about a greater equality in this world. That's what we see it. That's what it's about. We have to share our resources, so we would see a large increase in the amount that we will be looking to spend abroad. We would also be looking to cancel third world debt. And when it comes to nuclear weapons, which was another question, 90 seconds is not much for that question. Nuclear weapons do not make this world a safer place in any way at all. We can't afford them, we should get rid of them.
Thank you very much, James. Bruce, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, one of the advantages of not seeking great office other than a constituency MP is I can disagree with the leadership of my party on issues of principle. The invasion of Iraq, I thought was a dreadful mistake. I realised very quickly what a dreadful mistake it was when I saw after the fall of Baghdad GIs standing around while the population looted the ministries and the museums of antiquities, and I thought this is going to be a disaster. That conflict stretched my loyalty to the Labour Party to the limit. Sadly, it also confused in the public's mind the different problems of Iraq and Afghanistan. Afghanistan was hosting Al-Qaeda at the time. Although they moved, they're not going to hang around. They're in the Pashtun areas of the tribal areas of Pakistan and Afghanistan, but they'll go off to Sudan, or they'll go to the Yemen. I don't really know how our security is going to be increasing. I'll tell you what will improve security between the Islamic extremists and the West is to take away the weeping sore that's causing that. And that is the disgraceful treatment of the Palestinian Arabs. Now, anybody who watched while Israeli Phantom jets bombed the Gaza Strip or saw phosphorus shells fired into UN schools could not fail to be disgusted.
Well, as James said, 90 seconds isn't a lot of time to deal with the conflicts of the world. Now, the leaders of our respective parties, the three parties, have 90 minutes to deal with it tonight. But let me just pick a couple of issues. I think the first thing is we do need to have a review of British foreign and defence policy. We haven't had one since, a comprehensive one since 1998. And we do need to look at British national interests around the world. And because of our history, we do have interests that span the globe. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I think, on Afghanistan, that is quite different from the Iraq conflict. Afghanistan was where the 9/11 terrorists were trained. It is one of the regions, both Afghanistan and Pakistan, where actually there is a threat to our security. Afghanistan, if Afghanistan collapses and takes Pakistan with it, Pakistan is a nuclear weapons state in a very unstable part of the world. If that region gets into a very difficult position, we will not be able to insulate ourselves from what follows. And it's critical to our security that that region doesn't fail, which is why we're there supporting the democratic government of Afghanistan. And our exit strategy, which Chris mentioned, is we're training their own armed forces to be able to deliver their own security. And when I was there last year, I was able to talk to their armed forces, and they're very clear that the exit strategy is for them to be able to deliver that security. Finally, on nuclear weapons, James is right, we do want to rid the world of nuclear weapons. We're not going to do that if we unilaterally give up ours.
Thank you. Tim, would you like to answer?
Well, this is embarrassing. I agree very much with two previous, with Mark and Bruce. In distinguishing between Afghanistan and Iraq, in Afghanistan, Afghanistan was a failed state with harbouring terrorists who were responsible for the 9/11 atrocity, responsible also for bombings in London, and we have got to stop that. Clearly, we are, because of that, we are involved in Afghanistan. We had to be involved. We have to make sure that that doesn't happen again as far as possible. Iraq is another matter. I just say, I surprised you at the end of 2001. I actually was astonished when I heard from my American friends that there was going to be this invasion. I then went along with the official view, and then now I'm just very disappointed at just how misled we were by the official intelligence and so on. Very, very disappointing. I just say, to finish, that sometimes British foreign policy is successful, amazingly, and the intervention, for example, in Sierra Leone, I forget when it was actually very successful. A small equivalent of British troops stopped a civil war and brought peace to a troubled nation. These things can happen, and we should be grateful for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Would you like to ask?